Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam, ala rasulillah, nabiyyina Muhammad, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Islam in the 21st century, the show where we discuss contemporary issues facing the Ummah across the world today. My name is Sahel Garchi, and with the help of an expert panel, I will be exploring various topics which have caused confusion. Now, as always, further discussion is available on www.islam21c.com. Visit the website and join in the discussion by leaving your comments. On my right, I have Asifuddin from Islam21c. And to my immediate left, I have Sheikh Faraz Farhat from MRDF, the Muslim Research and Development Foundation. To my far left, I have Murtaza Sheikh, Legal and Political Officer for IQD, the Initiative on Quiet Diplomacy. Okay, now the first topic we're going to be discussing today is the article on Islam21c.com, Gaza, the Spark That Ignited the Ummah, by Fahad Ansari. For my first question, the article ends with a very powerful statement: Gaza is defiance, Gaza is freedom, Gaza is victory. Asifuddin, the atrocities, the destruction in Gaza being described as victory, do you agree with that?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Well, how is victory defined? The concept of victory in certain facets, it could be measured as victory. The fact that the vast majority of Muslims now are aware of the blockade, this in and of itself is a victory.
Were they not aware before?
They may have been aware of something that was taking place and the oppression that the Muslims or the Palestinians were going through, but to the extent, I doubt. And so this awareness is something that will lead on to actions, inshallah. And so in some respect, it is a type of victory.
Okay, then why doesn't the article say awareness? It uses that word victory, very emotive term.
Because this is something that will lead on to a very important and a movement to bring about freedom in the country. And this will only happen once the knowledge has been disseminated to convey to the people that this is the atrocities that the Gazans are going through. And once this has happened, then this will bring about a type of empathy for the Palestinians who are going through so much, and so this will lead on to the Muslims lobbying their governments, people of influence, to bring about change, whether it be through boycotting, whether it be through political pressure. All of this will happen as a result of this, inshallah.
Now, Sheikh Faraz Farhat, the article describes the demonstrations which took part in various parts of the Muslim world and in the Western world as an indication of the pulse of the Ummah, that the faintly beating pulse is still there. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. And just touching on what Asif was saying earlier about this being a victory, of course we measure victory or victories in different ways. And one of the perhaps the endemic problems of the Muslims around the world is this idea of Muslims only really being interested in what's their own affairs on a national, perhaps even on a communal level. But what the Gaza affair managed to do was to unite the Muslims on a common cause, and this is almost unprecedented in terms of Muslims throughout the world, throughout the globe, being able to come together on an issue that they felt strongly enough and to be united upon that. And this really mirrors the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said, paraphrasing, that the Muslims are like one body, and that when one part of the body feels pain, then the rest of the body feels temperature and stays up at night as a result. And so this part of the Muslims in Gaza were feeling this pain, and the rest of the Muslims around the world were responding to that pain through their demonstrations, through their through the various initiatives that they took up. And so this is, in many ways, this is a good sign, and this is a sign that this body is alive, it's not dead, and it still is able to respond to various ailments that may be occurring in the body. And also, just briefly about victory itself. I'm reminded about a surah in the Quran that begins by saying that the believers are victorious. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ. The believers have won through. And actually, this is a Makki surah, it was revealed in Makkah, where there was little victory for any of the Muslims there. And so where was the victory for them? And where is the true sense of us achieving victory, or the victory? Of course, the victory is in the hereafter. And so it also served, as the surah mentions, it speaks about the various qualities that the believers who are victorious happen to have. And then similarly, that the Muslims in Gaza, or even around the world, if they're able to wake up and realize that this is actually nothing to do with a piece of land or a nationality, but it's to do with a common thread that they all share, that is that one of Islam. If they're able to recognize this is because of Islam, that we feel in this way, feel passionate in this way, then in a sense they are beginning to rise and become victorious in expressing themselves as Muslims around the world.
Now, Murtaza Sheikh, both of our panelists have spoken about the awareness of the Ummah and the rising consciousness. But what I haven't heard yet is, where is the victory for the Muslims in Gaza? Do you agree with this statement that the whole episode with the attack on the flotillas by the Israeli army, with the blockade of Gaza, is there any sign of victory for the Muslims in Gaza?
I think before asking that question, we have to ask a question before it, which is, what victory are we talking about? What exactly are we classifying as a victory? And this is something which we assume, but we don't talk about.
You see, both our panelists are speaking about Muslims outside Gaza, their consciousness, their increasing awareness, their sense of unity.
Yeah.
What about the Muslims in Gaza?
Well, let's connect the two, and let's define what we're considering a victory. What people, when they talk about victory, what do they mean? And the actual victory we're talking about is public opinion. We're talking about mass public opinion, mass international public opinion, and given that the most powerful states in the world are democracies, or say they're democracies, then what their people say means a lot to them, whether they are Muslim or non-Muslim. So these popular movements all over the world, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands internationally, coming to the streets, protesting, this is what we're referring to actually. We're not referring to the victory of the Gazans themselves. Their situation hasn't improved. They might consider this a victory, not in terms of what they have achieved in the immediate term, but what this promises them for the future. Let's be realistic. When we define victory, let's acknowledge where the Palestinian people are, what they have gone through. This is an issue that has been persisting with no resolution, with every powerful, or every intelligent mind focused on it. It's been unresolved. And let's acknowledge the depraved state of the Palestinian people, the level of their suffering. You compare what we're talking about to that. It's not, are they victorious? Do they have their own state? Do they have food? Do they have water? Do they have respect? Do they have dignity? Let's put it into perspective. It's a victory in relation to their state. In terms of, it may not even be a victory itself, but just being closer to victory is a victory because not because we have low expectations, because of the extreme dire situation of the Palestinian people.
What is the legal status of the recent attacks by the Israeli army on the flotillas, which was trying to breach the blockade of Gaza? What's the legal status of that attack, and are there any consequences for the Israeli army?
Yeah, the legal status of that attack or boarding of those ships is quite clear for any impartial, objective jurist or legal expert. The ship was in international waters. It was nowhere near Israel. It was not approaching with weapons. It was not approaching to attack. So there was no grounds for preemptive boarding of the ship. It was a humanitarian ship with humanitarian supplies, and it was in international waters. No one doubts that. Israel does not object to that. So there's no basis under international law on which they could have boarded that ship, unless they knew that it was going to attack them, which it wasn't, and it didn't. Secondly, when they were actually on the ship...
Sorry, to then clarify, is it correct to say under international law the boarding of the flotilla was illegal?
In my opinion, yes, and in the opinion of most jurists. But the thing is, with international law, you cannot come to a definitive answer to anything until there is a judgment on it. And many international legal issues cannot have judgments on them because sometimes there is an international court which has the jurisdiction and the power to deal with that issue. But that doesn't mean that it's not governed by international law. It doesn't mean that those states should not do everything in their power to observe international law. Unlike domestic law, where there is usually a punishment or imprisonment when you do something wrong, in international law sometimes there isn't anything, and the only adverse consequence is worse relations.
Okay.
So in that sense, it's a bit weaker. But in terms of the theoretical and the legal status of the boarding of the ship, except the Israelis and maybe some of their closest allies like the US, according to everyone else, it was an illegal action.
Okay, but
there will be no determination of it. That's
but what you're suggesting, there are no actual consequences to this besides worsening of diplomatic relations?
No, there are consequences, but they're ad hoc consequences. There is no system which already exists which will look at it. They're ad hoc and they're negotiated, and inevitably they have a political dimension to them. And just to go back to the actual boarding of the ship, in relation to the actual boarding of the ship and what happened on the ship, which is crucial because that's when the people were shot and killed and injured, and what the Israelis allege they were attacked with weapons, and some say with even guns. The very simple, without going too deeply into the legal, the very simple principle to refer to here is proportionality, in terms of common sense and in terms of legality. You have to be proportionate in the way you respond to a particular threat. Now, even which is not confirmed, because according to the protesters, they say the soldiers came down firing. Yeah. They said they came down firing, so they were defending themselves. Even if the Israeli account is as they say it is, even if that is the case, which is they came down, they were attacked, and they defended themselves. Even if that is the case, under international law, given different cases and different precedents, there is no defense for not preparing appropriately for such a situation. Yeah, the blame has to come down on the Israeli army, even if this is taking what they say to be true. If we take what they say to be true, then even then they should have been prepared for what they were going to confront. They should have been prepared to control the crowd in a non-lethal manner. They should have been prepared for this. Yeah. So from both perspectives, there is no legal. It's illegal. It's illegal. Yeah.
We'll be going for a short break now. Please stay with us.